The November rain drummed against the glass walls of the Grandview Tower as Emma Rivera pushed her cleaning cart down the marble hallway. Her worn sneakers squeaked softly against the polished floor as she checked her watch. Nearly midnight, the luxury hotel was finally quiet, wealthy guests tucked away in their expensive suites. Emma paused outside the penthouse elevator, double-checking her work schedule. The top floor was usually off-limits to regular cleaning staff, but tonight she had been specifically assigned to clean the owner's private residence. Mr. Kane was traveling, according to her supervisor, and needed his penthouse spotless before his return tomorrow. She swiped her temporary access card and stepped into the private elevator. The ride to the 40th floor felt endless. Emma had worked at the Grandview for 6 months, but she had never ventured this high. The doors opened to reveal a stunning foyer with floor-to-ceiling, windows overlooking the glittering city below. The penthouse was like nothing Emma had ever seen. Modern furniture mixed with classic art pieces, creating an atmosphere of sophisticated elegance. She began her work methodically, dusting the expensive sculptures and polishing the granite surfaces. Everything screamed wealth and power, a world so far removed from her tiny studio apartment that it felt like another planet. As she moved toward the master bedroom, Emma heard an unexpected sound. Someone was home. Her heart raced as she realized she might have made a terrible mistake. Maybe Mr. Kane had returned early. Or perhaps she had the wrong night for the cleaning assignment. She should leave immediately. But something stopped her. The sound came again, and this time she recognized it. Someone was crying with the quiet sniffles of sadness, but the deep raw sobs of a person in genuine pain. Emma found herself moving toward the sound despite every instinct telling her to run. Through the partially open bedroom door, she saw him. Oliver Kane, the man whose picture graced business magazines and newspaper headlines, sat on the edge of his king-sized bed with his head in his hands. He looked nothing like the confident billionaire she had seen in photos. His usually perfect black hair was disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled and partially unbuttoned. An empty whiskey bottle lay on its side next to him, and scattered papers covered the floor around his feet. Emma knew she should quietly back away and pretend. She had never seen the powerful Oliver Kane in such a vulnerable state. But something in his posture, the complete defeat in his shoulders, made her heart ache. She had felt that same crushing loneliness too many times to simply walk away. She knocked softly on the doorframe. Oliver's head snapped up, his red-rimmed eyes focusing on her with surprise and confusion. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Emma took in his appearance up close. Even in his current state, he was devastatingly handsome with sharp cheekbones and intense green eyes that seemed to see right through her. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "I was told you were away. I can come back another time." Oliver stared at her as if she were an apparition. "Who are you?" "Emma Rivera. I work for the cleaning service. I'll go now and finish tomorrow." "Wait." His voice was rough from crying and alcohol. "Don't go, please." Emma hesitated in the doorway. Every rational thought told her this was dangerous. Oliver Kane was one of the most powerful men in the city, and she was just a struggling artist who cleaned hotel rooms to pay her bills. They existed in completely different worlds, but the pain in his eyes called to something deep inside her. She had grown up in foster care, moving from home to home, and she recognized the look of someone who had been abandoned too many times to count. "Are you all right?" she asked, stepping cautiously into the room. Oliver let out a bitter laugh. "All right. I just lost everything that mattered to me. My father built this empire from nothing, and I've managed to destroy it in less than 5 years." Emma noticed the papers scattered around him were legal documents and financial reports. Didn't understand the details. She could see the red numbers and urgent stamps that clearly indicated serious trouble. "I'm sure it's not as bad as it seems," she offered gently. "Isn't it?" Oliver looked at her with eyes that held no hope. "My business partner has been stealing from me for months. My investors are pulling out. The banks are calling in their loans. By next week, I'll have nothing left except this penthouse, and even that might not last long." Emma didn't know what to say to comfort someone facing such enormous problems. Her own struggles with rent money and student loans seemed insignificant. in comparison, but she understood loss and betrayal in her own way. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "That must feel terrible." Something in her voice, the genuine sympathy, without pity, seemed to reach Oliver. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. She was beautiful in an understated way, with long dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and warm brown eyes that held kindness, despite whatever hardships she had faced. "What's your real job?" he asked suddenly. "You're not really a cleaner." Emma's cheeks flushed. "I am a cleaner. I also paint, but that doesn't pay the bills." "Show me what your art. Do you have pictures?" Emma reluctantly pulled out her phone and showed him a few photos of her paintings. They were vibrant, emotional pieces that captured the beauty she found in everyday moments. A child laughing in a playground, an elderly couple sharing coffee, rain falling on flower petals. Oliver studied each image intently. "These are incredible. You see hope in everything. I try to find something beautiful in every day, even the difficult ones." They talked for hours. Oliver told her about growing up with a father who was rarely home, about the pressure of running a business empire at 28, about the loneliness of never knowing if people cared about him or just his money. Emma shared her own story of growing up without parents, of working multiple jobs to support her art, of the small joys she found in her simple life. As dawn approached, the conversation grew more intimate. Oliver reached out and touched her hand, and Emma felt an electric connection that she had never experienced before. When he leaned closer, she didn't pull away. Their first kiss was tender and desperate, like two drowning people reaching for each other. Emma knew she should stop, should remember the enormous gap between their worlds. But she had never felt anything as powerful as the connection growing between them. "I don't want to be alone tonight," Oliver whispered against her lips. "Neither do I," Emma admitted. What followed was a night of passionate connection unlike anything either had experienced. Oliver was gentle and attentive, as if Emma were made of precious glass. For Emma, who had never known such tenderness, every touch felt like a revelation. They made love as the sun rose over the city, and afterward lay entwined in Oliver's massive bed. Emma traced patterns on his chest while he stroked her hair, both afraid to break the spell that had brought them together. "What happens now?" Emma asked quietly. Oliver pulled her closer. "I don't know. My life is falling apart, and you deserve better than the mess I've become. Maybe we can figure it out together." For a moment, Oliver allowed himself to imagine a different future. A life where he could wake up every morning with Emma beside him, where her optimism could balance his cynicism, where love might matter more than money or power. But as the morning light grew stronger, reality began to intrude. Phone calls started coming in from his lawyers and business managers. The crisis that had driven him to drink alone the night before was still waiting. Demanding his attention, Emma quietly dressed and prepared to leave, understanding that Oliver's world was calling him back. She reached the door. He caught her hand. "Emma, last night meant everything to me. You have to know that." She smiled sadly. "I know, but mourning has a way of changing things. Not this, not us." Emma wanted to believe him, but she had learned not to expect too much from life. She kissed him gently and left, carrying the memory of one perfect night that felt like a beautiful dream. Neither of them realized that their single night together had created something that would bind them forever, or that powerful forces were already moving to tear them apart before they could discover what they might mean to each other. As Emma rode the elevator back to the ground floor, she touched her lips where Oliver's kisses still lingered. No way of knowing that in a few weeks everything would change, and the consequences of their passionate night would reshape both their lives in ways they never could have imagined. 3 weeks had passed since that unforgettable night, and Emma's life had returned to its familiar rhythm of cleaning shifts and painting in her cramped studio. She tried not to think about Oliver Kane, though his memory lingered like a bittersweet dream that refused to fade. Emma was wiping down tables in the hotel's coffee shop when the first wave of nausea hit her. She rushed to the staff bathroom, barely making it before losing what little breakfast she had managed to eat. Maria Santos, her closest friend and fellow cleaner, found her there 20 minutes later. "Emma, you look terrible," Maria said, pressing a cool paper towel to Emma's forehead. "This is the third time this week. Maybe you should see a doctor." Emma shook her head weakly. "I can't afford a doctor visit. It's probably just stress or something I ate." But deep down, Emma knew what was happening. Her period was 2 weeks late, and the morning sickness was becoming impossible to ignore. That evening, she used her last $20 to buy a pregnancy test from the pharmacy 3 blocks from her apartment. The 2 pink lines appeared within seconds, confirming what her heart already knew. Emma sank onto her tiny bathroom floor, staring at the test in her trembling hands. She was pregnant with Oliver Kane's child. Meanwhile, Oliver was fighting his own battles. The financial crisis that had driven him to despair that November night had only worsened. His business partner, James Morrison, had not only been embezzling funds, but had also secretly negotiated deals that left Oliver's company drowning in debt. Oliver sat in his lawyer's office reviewing documents that painted a grim picture of his future. "How long do I have?" he asked. "Maybe 6 months before you'll be forced to sell everything," his lawyer replied grimly. "Unless you can find a significant investor willing to take a risk on rebuilding." That afternoon, Catherine Blackwell appeared at Oliver's office like an angel of salvation. She was a stunning woman in her mid-30s with platinum blonde hair and ice blue eyes that missed nothing. Her family owned a chain of luxury hotels across Europe, and she had the financial resources to save Oliver's empire. "I have a proposition for you," Catherine said, settling elegantly into the chair across from his desk. "A partnership that could solve all your problems." Oliver studied her carefully. Catherine was beautiful, intelligent, and came from the same privileged world he inhabited. On paper, she was everything he should want in a partner, both personally and professionally. "What kind of partnership?" he asked. Catherine smiled, a calculated expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. "A complete merger of our companies backed by a personal alliance. Marriage, Oliver. It would combine our resources and create the most powerful hotel empire in the world." Oliver's thoughts immediately went to Emma. In the 3 weeks since their night together, he had thought about her constantly. He had wanted to contact her, but the chaos of his business crisis had consumed every moment of his time. Now, faced with Catherine's offer, he realized he had to make an impossible choice. "I need time to think," Oliver said. "Of course, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever." Emma had been avoiding the upper floors of the hotel, hoping to avoid any chance encounter with Oliver. But fate had other plans. As she cleaned the lobby late one evening, she overheard 2 hotel managers discussing the latest gossip. "Did you hear about Mr. Kane and Catherine Blackwell?" one whispered. "You're saying it's going to be the wedding of the century. He's exactly what he needs right now." Emma's blood turned to ice. She finished her work in a daze and went home, where she spent the night crying into her pillow. The next morning, she made a decision that would change everything. She requested a transfer to a different hotel in the cleaning company's network. When her supervisor asked why, Emma simply said she needed a change of scenery. Within a week, she had moved to a smaller, cheaper apartment across town and started working at a boutique hotel that catered to business travelers rather than billionaires. Catherine, meanwhile, had begun implementing her own plan. She had noticed the way Oliver seemed distracted, the way his eyes sometimes grew distant during their business meetings. A private investigator she hired discovered the truth about Emma Rivera. And that night in November, Catherine confronted Emma at her new job, arriving at the modest hotel like a predator stalking its prey. She found Emma in the supply room stocking towels with hands that shook slightly from morning sickness. "You must be Emma Rivera," Catherine said, her voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade. Emma looked up immediately, recognizing the woman from newspaper photos. "Miss Blackwell, what are you doing here?" "I think you know exactly why I'm here. You spent the night with Oliver Kane, and now you're carrying his child." Emma's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." Catherine laughed coldly. "Please. I have photographs of you leaving his penthouse that morning. I know about the pregnancy test you bought. The question is, what do you plan to do about it?" Emma straightened her shoulders, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. "That's between Oliver and me. is it? 'Cause from where I stand, it looks like you're planning to trap a desperate man with a pregnancy claim. How convenient that you discovered you were carrying his child just as his business began to fail. The accusation hit Emma like a physical blow. Not like that, isn't it? You're a poor girl who got pregnant by a billionaire. Even a failing billionaire is worth more than you'll ever see in your lifetime. Catherine stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming in the small space. But here's what you don't understand. Oliver needs me to save his company. Our merger is the only thing standing between him and complete financial ruin. Emma felt tears threatening to spill over. He has a right to know about his child. And I have a right to protect the man I'm going to marry from gold-digging opportunists. Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. There's $50,000 in here. Take it, disappear, and never contact Oliver again. Raise your child somewhere far from here, and let him move on with his life at the envelope, knowing that $50,000 would solve all her immediate problems. She could afford proper medical care, a decent place to live, maybe even quit cleaning and focus on her art. But accepting the money would mean admitting that. Catherine was right about her motives. I won't take your money, Emma said quietly. You'll force me to take other measures. Oliver's company is hanging by a thread. If he becomes distracted by a pregnant cleaning girl and loses focus on saving his business, he'll lose everything. Is that what you want? To be responsible for destroying him completely? The words hit their target perfectly. Alma had grown up, believing she was a burden, bouncing from foster home to foster home, because no one really wanted her. The idea that she might destroy Oliver's life was unbearable. 6 months, Catherine continued, pressing her advantage. Give me 6 months to stabilize his business and secure our marriage. After that, if he still wants to know about the child, I won't stand in your way. Emma knew it was a lie, but she also knew she was trapped. She nodded slowly, hating herself for the weakness. Catherine smiled triumphantly. Smart choice, Emma. If you change your mind and try to contact him before then, I'll make sure you lose your job and never find work in the city again. I have connections everywhere. After Catherine left, Emma sat alone in the supply room, one hand on her still flat belly. She had thought the hardest part would be telling Oliver about the pregnancy. She never imagined that staying silent would be even more devastating. Over the following weeks, Emma watched from afar as the business newspapers reported on Oliver's remarkable recovery. Catherine's investment had indeed saved his company, and their engagement was announced with great fanfare. The photos showed them at charity galas and business events. Looking like the perfect power couple, Emma's pregnancy progressed quietly. She found a free clinic that provided basic prenatal care and picked up extra cleaning shifts to save money for the baby's arrival. The morning sickness eventually faded, replaced by a growing belly that she hid under loose clothing and a heavy heart that she carried everywhere. She painted obsessively during her free time, creating canvases filled with stormy seas and solitary figures that reflected her emotional turmoil. Art became her only outlet for the pain of loving someone she could never have. At 5 months pregnant, Emma's resolve finally cracked. She had just finished a particularly difficult shift when she found herself standing outside the Grandview Tower, staring up at the penthouse where her life had changed forever. She pulled out her phone and started to dial Oliver's number, which she had memorized from hotel records. But before she could complete the call, she saw Oliver emerge from the building with Catherine on his arm. They were laughing at something Catherine had said. Oliver looked genuinely happy for the first time since Emma had known him. Catherine was radiant in a designer dress and expensive jewelry. Everything Emma could never be. Emma ended the call and walked away, realizing that Catherine had been right about one thing. Oliver belonged in a world of wealth and sophistication, and she was just a poor girl who had briefly wandered into his orbit. Their night together had been beautiful, but it had also been impossible from the very beginning. She spent that evening writing a letter to Oliver that she would never send, pouring out all her love and regret onto paper. Then she burned it in her tiny kitchen sink and made a promise to herself that she would raise their child with all the love she had been denied, never letting the baby know that their father had chosen another life. As winter turned to spring, Emma's belly grew round and full. She felt the baby's first kicks during a quiet evening in her apartment. And despite everything, she smiled through her tears. This child would be her family, the one person in the world who would truly belong to her. She had no way of knowing that Oliver thought of her constantly, that he had tried to find her at the Grandview, only to learn she no longer worked there. Catherine had made sure all traces of Emma Rivera disappeared from Oliver's world, leaving him with nothing but haunting memories of the one night when he had felt truly alive. 8 months later, Emma gave birth to a daughter during a cold February morning. The labor was long and difficult with only Maria by her side as she brought Sofia Cain Rivera into the world. Emma had chosen the name Sophia, meaning wisdom, hoping her daughter would be smarter than her mother and never fall for impossible. Dream's baby Sophia was perfect with dark hair like her mother's and bright green eyes that were unmistakably Oliver's. As Emma held her newborn daughter for the first time, she felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. This tiny person would never doubt she was wanted, would never feel abandoned or alone. The first few months of motherhood were harder than Emma had imagined. Sophia was a fussy baby who rarely slept through the night, and Emma struggled to balance caring for her with working enough hours to pay their bills. The small apartment felt even smaller with a crying infant, and Emma's art supplies gathered dust in the corner as every moment was consumed by her daughter's needs. One evening when Sophia was 4 months old and particularly colicky, Emma reached her breaking point. She was walking the floor at 2 o'clock in the morning, bouncing her screaming daughter and crying herself from exhaustion. When there was a soft knock at her door, Emma opened it to find Maria holding a bag of groceries and wearing a determined expression. "I'm staying the night," Maria announced. "You need sleep, and that baby needs someone who isn't falling apart from exhaustion." "I can't ask you to do that," Emma protested weakly. "You're not asking, I'm insisting." Maria took Sophia from Emma's arms and began the gentle swaying motion that sometimes calmed the baby. "Go shower, eat something, and sleep. I'll handle Princess Fussy Pants here." For the first time in months, Emma slept for 6 straight hours. She woke to find Maria feeding Sophia a bottle while humming a Spanish lullaby. The baby was calm and content. Her green eyes focused intently on Maria's face. "How did you do that?" Emma asked in amazement. "Practice. I raised 4 younger siblings after my mother died." Maria smiled. "But also, babies can sense when their mothers are stressed. You've been running on empty for months, Emma. You can't pour from an empty cup." That conversation marked a turning point. Maria began spending several nights a week at Emma's apartment, giving her the support she desperately needed. Slowly, Emma began to find her footing as a mother. She even started painting again during Sophia's naps, creating gentle watercolors of her sleeping daughter. Meanwhile, Oliver's life had taken an unexpected turn. His marriage to Catherine had been scheduled for the previous month, but he had called it off at the last minute. Standing at the altar of the cathedral, surrounded by 500 of the city's most prominent citizens, Oliver had realized he couldn't promise to love Catherine. When his heart belonged to someone else entirely, the scandal had been enormous. Catherine had been humiliated publicly. Their business partnership had dissolved in a storm of lawsuits and recriminations. But Oliver had saved enough of his fortune to maintain his independence. And for the first time in months, he felt like he could breathe again. He had spent the past several weeks searching for Emma Rivera with the dedication of a man possessed. He hired private investigators, contacted every cleaning service in the city, and even posted discreet advertisements in newspapers. But Emma seemed to have vanished completely from his world. Catherine, meanwhile, was plotting her revenge. Public humiliation of being left at the altar had destroyed her reputation and cost her family. Millions in wedding preparations and broken business deals. She blamed Emma for Oliver's change of heart, correctly guessing that memories of the mysterious cleaning girl had influenced his decision. Catherine's private investigator finally located Emma and Sophia, providing photographs and an address. Looking at the pictures of Emma pushing a stroller through a modest neighborhood, Catherine felt a surge of vindictive satisfaction. She had been right about the pregnancy, and now she would make sure Oliver learned the truth in the most damaging way possible. Catherine arranged for Oliver to receive an anonymous package containing photos of Emma with a baby along with a note suggesting he might want to investigate the timeline of the child's birth. She knew that learning about his daughter's existence secondhand after missing her entire first year of life would devastate him. Oliver stared at the photographs with shaking hands, his mind racing through the implications. The baby girl had his green eyes and Emma's delicate features. The timing was perfect, exactly 9 months after their night together. Emma had been pregnant when she disappeared from his life, and she had chosen to raise their child alone rather than tell him. His first emotion was joy so intense it left him dizzy. He had a daughter, a beautiful little girl who was part of him and part of the woman he had never stopped loving. But joy quickly gave way to hurt and anger. Why hadn't Emma told him? How could she have made the decision to exclude him from his own child's life? Oliver drove to Emma's address that same evening, his heart pounding as he climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment. He could hear a baby crying inside, and the sound went straight to his soul. I was his daughter crying, his child whom he had never held or comforted. Emma opened the door holding Sophia, who was teething and cranky. Her face went white when she saw Oliver standing in the hallway, looking like an avenging angel in his expensive suit. "Hello, Emma," Oliver said, his voice carefully controlled. "I think we need to talk." Emma stepped back, clutching Sophia protectively against her chest. "How did you find us? Does it matter? The question is, why didn't you tell me I have a daughter?" Oliver's eyes were fixed on the baby, drinking in every detail of her perfect little face. "Because you were engaged to someone else. Because your world and mine don't mix. 'Cause I didn't want to trap you with an unwanted responsibility." The words came out in a rush, each one a small knife wound to Oliver's heart. Unwanted. Oliver stepped into the apartment without being invited, his presence making the small space feel even more cramped. "She's my daughter, Emma. My flesh and blood. How could you think I wouldn't want to know her?" Sophia had stopped crying and was staring at Oliver with curious green eyes that mirrored his own. The recognition was instant and mutual. Oliver felt something fundamental shift inside him as he looked at his daughter for the first time. "May I hold her?" he asked quietly. Emma hesitated, then slowly transferred Sophia into Oliver's arms. The moment was electric. Sophia immediately settled against her father's chest as if she had been waiting her whole short life for this embrace. Oliver closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the flood of love and protectiveness that surged through him. "What's her name?" he whispered. "Sophia Kane." "Rhea." Oliver looked up sharply. "You gave her my name?" Emma's cheeks flushed. She deserved to have her father's name, even if he couldn't be part of her life. They talked through the night while Sophia slept peacefully in Oliver's arms, as if she knew she was finally where she belonged. Emma told him about Catherine's threats and the money she had refused. Oliver revealed the truth about his broken engagement and his desperate search for them both. "Catherine lied to both of us," Oliver said, his voice hard with anger. "She manipulated the situation to keep us apart." "It doesn't matter now," Emma said tiredly. "Too much time has passed. You have your life and Sophia, and I have ours." "No," Oliver's voice was firm. "It matters more than anything. I love you, Emma. I never stopped loving you. I love this little girl who's half of each of us. I want to be her father, and I want to be your husband." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "Oliver, it's not that simple. You're still a billionaire, and I'm still just a cleaning girl with a baby. People will say, I trapped you. Let them talk. The only opinions that matter to me are yours and Sophia's." Oliver reached out and touched Emma's face gently. "I know I have a lot to make up for. I know I wasn't here when you needed me most, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. Oliver moved into a family-friendly penthouse and insisted on paying for everything Sophia needed. From medical care to a nursery that looked like a fairy tale, he threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. Learning to change diapers and prepare bottles with endearing determination, Emma watched in amazement. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and controlled millions of dollars became completely undone by his infant daughter's smile. Sophia adored her father instantly, always calming in his arms and reaching for him whenever he entered a room. Catherine made one final attempt to destroy their happiness, releasing a story to the tabloids claiming that Emma was a gold digger who had deliberately gotten pregnant to trap Oliver. But the plan backfired when photos of Oliver with Sophia showed such obvious love and joy that public opinion swung in their favor. 6 months after Oliver found them, he proposed to Emma in the same penthouse where they had first met. Sophia sat on Emma's lap playing with the enormous diamond ring that Oliver had chosen specifically because it reminded him of Emma's eyes. "I know this isn't traditional," Oliver said, getting down on one knee in front of both his girls. "Our love story has never been traditional. Emma Rivera, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making up for the time we lost?" Emma looked down at Sophia, who was babbling happily and reaching for the sparkly ring, then back at Oliver's hopeful face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it." Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the penthouse garden with Sophia as their flower girl. She toddled unsteadily down the aisle in a tiny white dress, clutching rose petals in her chubby fists and making everyone cry with her adorable determination to reach her parents as they exchanged vows with their daughter. Between them, Emma marveled at how different their story could have been if they had trusted each other from the beginning. But perhaps the pain and separation had been necessary to teach them how precious their love truly was. Oliver's vows brought tears to everyone's eyes. "Emma, you taught me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. You gave me the greatest gift imaginable in our daughter, and then you gave me the even greater gift of your forgiveness. I promise to love you and Sophia with everything I have for the rest of our lives." Emma's vows were simpler, but no less heartfelt. "Oliver, you showed me that fairy tales can come true, even for girls like me. Thank you for finding us, for choosing us, and for proving that love really can conquer everything." As they kissed to seal their marriage, Sophia clapped her tiny hands and squealed with delight, as if she understood that her family was finally complete. The three of them danced their first dance together, Sophia giggling as she was spun between her parents. Later, as they put their daughter to bed in her new nursery, Emma realized that their story had come full circle. They had begun with a night of unexpected connection, endured separation and heartbreak, and found their way back to each other through the miracle of their child. "No more secrets," Oliver murmured as they watched Sophia sleep peacefully in her crib. "No more running away," Emma agreed. They had learned that love alone wasn't enough without trust and communication. But with all three elements together, they could overcome anything. Their daughter would grow up knowing she was wanted and cherished, surrounded by the kind of love that Emma had always dreamed of, but never dared to hope for. As they stood together in the doorway of their daughter's room, Oliver's arms around Emma and her head on his shoulder, they both knew that their greatest adventure was just beginning. They had found their way home to each other, and nothing would ever separate them again.